In the heart of West Africa, within the sprawling city of Ouagadougou, life moves to the vibrant rhythm of a million whirring motorbikes. This is a city of intoxicatingly bright colors, where the very air is thick with the competing smells of street dust and freshly fried dough, a sensory overload for any newcomer. For the vast majority of its inhabitants, this bustling metropolis is simply home, a place of community and daily life. But for a 16-year-old girl named Awa, these same chaotic streets were a relentless and unforgiving battlefield where every day was a struggle for basic survival. Every single sunrise brought with it the same gnawing hunger pains and the same desperate, unending fight to simply make it to the next day. She and her frail little brother, Musa, were like nearly invisible ghosts haunting the capital city of Burkina Faso, a nation whose very name translates to the land of honest men. They were just two of the thousands upon thousands of lost children the massive city had seemingly swallowed whole, their individual stories lost in the crowd, and their faces blurring into the background of urban life, unseen and uncared for by the world rushing past them. The siblings possessed absolutely nothing they could call their own. They had no home to shelter them from the elements, no parents to guide or protect them, and truly no tangible idea what the next day, or even the next hour, would bring into their precarious existence. Their future was a terrifying blank slate, devoid of hope or promise. But on one particularly sweltering morning, while seeking refuge in the oppressive sun under the welcoming shade of an old, leafy mango tree, Awa was destined to find something completely unexpected. The object she would discover lying in the dust was unassuming at first glance, yet it held within it the power to irrevocably alter the course of her entire life. Its discovery would force her to confront a completely impossible choice, a decision that would weigh her survival against the very core of her character. This was no simple find. It was a test of her spirit, presented to her in a moment of utter desperation, promising either ruin or salvation depending on the path she chose to take in the critical moments that would follow. This single, forgotten object, a simple leather wallet, would become the catalyst for a profound moral crossroads. It presented Awa with a choice that felt impossibly heavy, a life-altering decision that would either seal her and her brother's unfortunate fate on the streets indefinitely or rewrite their destiny in a way she could never have possibly imagined. The path she ultimately chose would set off a shocking chain of events so unbelievable, so powerful, that its ripple effects would end up astonishing everyone in the entire city. On the harsh, sun-baked streets of Ouagadougou, 16-year-old Awa was adrift with absolutely nothing to her name. Each day was a grueling and desperate search for a few meager coins, just enough to buy a small portion of food to quiet the hunger in her stomach and that of her sick little brother, Musa. One morning, as if placed there by fate itself, she found a rich leather wallet lying in the dust, overflowing with a stack of cash, so thick it made her gasp. In an instant, she held more money than she had ever seen in her life. This was not just currency. It was a tangible escape route, a miracle delivered directly into her hands when all hope seemed lost. The money was more than enough to secure a real roof over their heads, a safe room far away from the dangers of the street. Critically, it was also enough to buy the expensive medicine that Musa so desperately needed to survive the illness that was consuming him. It was a lifeline, a winning lottery ticket, and in that moment, absolutely nobody saw her find it. The immense temptation was a deafening roar in her ears, powerful enough to drown out every other sound of the bustling city. Who would possibly know if she took it? The man who had dropped it was clearly wealthy beyond her wildest dreams. To him, this amount of cash was likely a minor inconvenience, something he could easily replace. To her, however, it represented life itself, the answer to her most desperate prayers, and the only visible path to saving her brother. She could simply take the money, discard the wallet, and vanish back into the sprawling anonymity of the city, forever changing their circumstances. But the wallet didn't just belong to a faceless rich man. It belonged to a father, alone on the street, with her brother's ragged breathing in her ears and nobody watching. She faced a truly impossible personal choice between her immediate needs and her ingrained principles, a conflict that tore at her very soul. This single decision, made in a quiet moment of desperation, would become the fulcrum upon which her entire future balanced. It would either condemn her to a continued life of hardship, forever haunted by what could have been, or it would completely alter her destiny in the most unexpected way imaginable. What Awa ultimately chose to do next would trigger a sequence of events so unbelievable and profound that it would send shockwaves of astonishment through the entire city. Awa knew the treacherous streets of Ouagadougou like the back of her own hand, a map of survival etched into her mind. She had learned precisely which market vendors would cruelly shoo her away with angry words, and which ones might, on a good day, spare a single bruised mango that was unfit for sale. She held a mental catalog of the best awnings to hide under when a violent seasonal rain swept through, turning the dusty roads into impassable rivers of thick, red mud. It was a hard, unforgiving life, but her life wasn't always so incredibly difficult. She clung tightly to the faded, dreamlike memories of a time before, in a small, peaceful village where the air perpetually smelled of wet earth after a cleansing rain, and the comforting aroma of family cooking fires, a time when she felt safe and loved. This prior life was a world away from her current reality, but the memories remained vivid. She could almost feel her mother's hands, which were callous from work, but always impossibly gentle when they touched her cheek, and she could still hear the deep, rumbling sound of her father's laughter echoing in her mind. But a terrible, fast-moving sickness had swept through their quiet village like a phantom, tragically taking both of her parents from her in a matter of weeks. Left orphaned and with no one else in the world to turn to, Awa took her little brother, Musa, by the hand and joined the endless river of people flowing towards the capital city, chasing the desperate, shimmering mirage of a better future. However, Ouagadougou proved to be a harsh and unforgiving place for two small, grieving children. They very quickly became what the locals call Backermen, street children, a term that tragically translates to children of nobody. Their only claim to a home was a thin, rough mat that Awa had painstakingly woven from discarded plastic shopping bags, a meager shelter tucked away in a filthy alley behind a bustling, noisy market. It was a place where they could be invisible, but offered no real comfort or safety from the city's many dangers. Their days devolved into a relentless, soul-crushing grind just to exist. Awa would spend her daylight hours weaving more of the plastic mats, which she would then try to sell for a pittance, barely enough for a single meal. Meanwhile, Musa, who was painfully small for his 8 years, would stand at busy intersections offering to wash car windscreens for just a few coins, often getting yelled at by impatient drivers. It was a miserable hand-to-mouth cycle of extreme poverty with no conceivable end in sight, each day a carbon copy of the last. Recently, however, a very deep and troubling cough had settled in Mouse's small chest, a sickness that seemed to tighten its grip with each passing day. The hacking sounds kept him awake all night long, his little body trembling with persistent and steadily worsening fever. Awa watched over him with a growing knot of pure, cold fear tightening in her stomach. He was the only family she had left in the entire world, and she could see that he was slowly fading away before her very eyes, his youthful energy draining away into the dust. The day that would ultimately change everything began just like any other, under the fierce and unforgiving glare of the West African sun. Awa was diligently weaving a new plastic mat, while her brother Musa slept fitfully beside her, his breathing shallow and noticeably ragged. Each pain gasp sending a fresh wave of anxiety through her. It was in that moment of quiet desperation that she saw it. A shiny black car, the kind that whispered of immense wealth and power, gliding to a silent stop nearby. The vehicle was so clean and polished it seemed to belong to another world entirely. A well-dressed man stepped out of the expensive vehicle, looking immaculate and out of place against the dusty backdrop of the street. He was clothed in a crisp, white shirt and perfectly tailored trousers, and he was speaking urgently into a sleek smartphone, his voice filled with authority. It was clear to anyone watching that he was a man of great importance and influence. As he strode confidently toward a tall, modern office building, something dark and heavy slipped unnoticed from his back pocket, landing silently in the dust. It was a fine leather wallet. Awa's breath caught in her throat, and her heart began to pound like a drum against her ribs. Her eyes darted around the immediate area. But the street was busy with its usual chaotic flow of people, and no one else seemed to have noticed what had just happened. Moving slowly, as if in a trance, she walked over and picked the wallet up from the ground. Her hands trembled uncontrollably as she opened it, and the sight that greeted her inside made her let out a small, sharp gasp. It was filled with neat stacks of cash, more money than she had ever seen, or even dare to dream of in her entire life. This was not just a small sum of lost money. It was a veritable fortune that felt heavy and powerful in her hands. To a girl like Awa, it represented immediate freedom from the relentless misery of the streets. It was the expensive medicine for Musa that could finally quell his fever and save his precious life. It was a small, clean room to rent, a sanctuary away from all the dust and the constant danger of their current life. It meant they could afford real, nutritious food for months to come, allowing her brother to finally regain his strength. The temptation was a deafening roar in her ears, a screaming voice that drowned out all the other noises of the city, logic, and memory. Who would ever possibly know? This man was obviously rich beyond her wildest dreams. For him, this lost money was probably nothing more than a minor, frustrating inconvenience that he could easily absorb. To her, however, it was life itself, a genuine miracle sent from the heavens to rescue her and Musa from their suffering. She clutched the wallet tightly, the smooth leather feeling foreign and forbidden in her callous fingers. After a moment of intense internal warfare, a fragile but firm decision settled in her heart like a stone. She would wait for the man to return. She would give the wallet back to its rightful owner, preserving the one thing she still truly possessed. She sat back down on the dusty roadside curb, placing the heavy wallet in her lap, and began the long, agonizing wait. The sun climbed higher into the sky, transforming from a source of light into a merciless white-hot orb. Sweat trickled down her temples and the back of her neck as her empty stomach ached with familiar, gnawing pain. After some time, Musa stirred beside her, his voice a weak and raspy whisper as he pleaded for a drink of water. His simple request felt like a knife twisting in Awa's heart. All around them, vendors were selling bottles of chilled water and sweet drinks, their calls echoing in the hot air. The money resting in her lap could buy them a feast and an endless supply of cold, clean water. But she knew that using even a single one of those bills would feel like a total betrayal of the difficult choice she had just made, a betrayal of her mother's memory. "Soon, Musa," she whispered, her voice cracking as she stroked his hot forehead. The hours crawled by with excruciating slowness, each minute stretching into an eternity. People on the street would occasionally glance at the young girl and the obviously sick child sitting motionless in the oppressive heat, but then they would quickly look away, dismissing them as just another sad part of the city's scenery. The important man in the white shirt didn't come back. A cold tendril of doubt started to creep into Awa's mind. What if he never came back for it? Would she allow her little brother to suffer needlessly for a principle that no one else seemed to value? The sly whisper of temptation returned, this time more cunning and persuasive. "Just take one note." It seemed to say, just enough for some water and a little bit of food for him. The man will never know the difference, and Musa needs it right now. She looked down at the wallet, then over at her brother's parched, cracked lips and his shallow breathing. As her resolve began to waver under the immense weight of her love and fear, she suddenly saw him. The man from the car emerged from the tall building, his face a mask of frantic panic as he patted his pockets with growing alarm. In that instant, all doubt vanished from Awa's mind. Her heart leaped into her throat, and a wave of adrenaline washed over her. Taking a deep, steadying breath, she pushed herself to her feet and began to walk toward the clearly distressed man, her steps feeling both heavy and light at the same time. "Monsieur," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper, hoarse from thirst and disuse. "Did you perhaps lose something of value?" He stared down at her, a desperate flicker of hope finally igniting in his worried eyes. "My wallet." "Yes." "Have you seen my wallet?" Awa simply held it out to him. The man, whose name was Monsieur Ouagadougou, took the wallet from Awa's small, trembling hand as if it were in a dream. He quickly opened it, his fingers fumbling slightly as he checked the contents inside. He saw the thick stacks of cash, the credit card, and the small, folded photograph of his smiling young daughter tucked safely in his pocket. It was all there, completely untouched. A long, shuddering sigh of pure, unadulterated relief escaped his lips. It was only then that he looked up and finally, truly, saw the girl standing before him. He saw her faded, threadbare clothes, her dusty bare feet, and the deep, profound exhaustion etched onto her young face. More than that, he saw the quiet, unwavering dignity that shone in her eyes. You You gave it all back, he stammered, his voice thick with sudden, overwhelming emotion. He looked from the thick bundle of bills back to her poverty-stricken appearance. You could have taken every last franc. No one in the world would have known it was you. Why didn't you? Awa simply looked down at the ground, unable to meet his intense gaze. It was not mine, monsieur, she said softly, the simplicity and sincerity of her answer seeming to stun the wealthy man into silence. He was a powerful businessman, a man accustomed to a world of complexity, hidden motives, and transactional relationships. Her raw, unadorned honesty was a genuine shock to the system. He remained quiet for a long moment, studying her as if she were a puzzle he couldn't solve. "What is your name?" he finally asked, his voice now gentle. "Awa Traore." "And where do you live, Awa Traore?" he inquired, his curiosity growing. She gestured vaguely with her hand toward the sprawling market behind her. "I do not have a real home. I sleep over there with my little brother." At the mere mention of her brother, Monsieur Ouagadougou's eyes drifted past her to the small, shivering boy lying on the plastic mat under the tree. Upon seeing the child's fragile state, his expression immediately softened, transforming into a look of deep, pained sadness and understanding. He looked back at Awa, and a slow, genuine smile spread across his face, though it didn't quite reach his eyes, which were now filled with different emotion. "Awa," he began, his voice low and serious, "I have something I must confess to you. Losing my wallet here today was not entirely an accident." Awa looked up, her face a mask of complete confusion at his strange and wholly unexpected confession. This was certainly not the reaction she had anticipated. "For weeks," he continued, a weary sadness lacing his voice, "I've been losing my faith in people. In my world, I am surrounded by so much unending greed and dishonesty. I started to wonder if real, simple integrity even existed anymore. So I began a little test, leaving my wallet in different places, just hoping one person, anyone, would prove me wrong." Monsieur Ouagadougou knew in his heart that an act of integrity this profound, especially from someone with so little, deserved far more than just a simple cash reward. An act this pure did not deserve a reward. It deserved an entirely new life. He took out his sleek smartphone and made a single important phone call. Within just a few minutes, the same shiny black car, he had arrived and pulled up silently to the curb. He opened the back door and then turned to Awa with a warm, kind smile that radiated sincerity. "Please," he said to her gently, "you and your brother must come with me. I give you my solemn word, you are safe now." Terrified of the unknown but trusting the genuine kindness she saw reflected in his eyes, Awa gently woke Musa and helped her weak brother into back of car. The moment they sat down, they sank into the softest leather seats they had ever felt, and the blast of cool air from the vehicle's air conditioning was a welcome shock to their overheated bodies. As the luxurious car silently pulled away from the curb, Awa looked out the window at the bustling, chaotic marketplace. It was the only home she had ever really known, and she watched it intently until it completely disappeared from her view, feeling as though she was leaving her old life behind forever and heading toward an unknown future. They drove to a neighborhood unlike any she had ever seen, with wide, clean streets and enormous houses hidden behind tall, ornate gates, finally stopping before a beautiful, sprawling home set in a lush garden. Inside, a woman with a warm, welcoming smile greeted them at the door. This was Madame Ouagadougou. But when her eyes landed on poor, sick Musa, her friendly smile was immediately replaced by a look of deep and immediate concern. Without a moment's hesitation, she called for a doctor to come to the house right away. While they waited for the doctor's arrival, Madame Ouagadougou led the stunned children to a grand dining room, where a magnificent feast was laid out on a long, polished wooden table. For the first time in years, Awa and Musa ate until they were completely and satisfyingly full, their eyes wide with disbelief at the sheer amount of food. It felt like a wonderful dream that they never wanted to wake from. Soon after, the doctor came and professionally examined Musa, giving him strong medicine for a severe chest infection and confidently assuring them all that he would make a full and speedy recovery. Later that evening, long after Musa had been tucked into a warm, clean bed, the softest thing he had ever felt, Monsieur and Madame Ouagadougou sat down with Awa. "Awa," The billionaire began, his voice filled with sincere and profound gratitude. Today, you have shown more character and integrity than most people I meet who have everything they could ever possibly want or need. You did not just return my money to me. You returned my hope for humanity. His kind wife then reached out and took Awa's small, callous hand in her own. We would be deeply honored, she said softly, if you and Musa would agree to stay with us. Not as our guests, but as our family. We will send you to the best school in the city. You will have a real home now. You're finally safe with us here. The incredible story of Awa and Monsieur Ouagadougou is a powerful and moving reminder that honesty is a true treasure, a form of wealth that shines its brightest light in the darkest and most desperate places. It serves as proof that the strength of one's character can be the most valuable asset a person possesses, far more precious than any amount of money or material possessions. This story celebrates the quiet dignity that can be found in the most unexpected corners of our world. If this particular story touched your heart and reaffirmed your faith in the goodness of people, we warmly invite you to subscribe to our channel for more inspirational tales just like this one. Our mission is to find and share stories that celebrate the inherent good that exists within the human spirit, offering a beacon of light in a world that can often feel overwhelming. Your subscription helps us continue this important work and build a community centered on positivity and hope. We also encourage you to like this video and, more importantly, share it with someone you know who might be in need of a little bit of hope today. A simple click can help this uplifting message travel further, potentially reaching someone who needs to be reminded of the kindness and integrity that still exists in the world. Your incredible support is a fuel that allows us to keep finding and sharing these amazing true-to-life stories. Every single like, share, and subscription plays a crucial role in helping our channel grow and spread its message of positivity to a wider audience. By engaging with our content, you're not just watching a video. You are actively participating in a movement to highlight the best aspects of our shared humanity. Your support empowers us to dedicate more resources to uncovering and producing high-quality, uplifting content. We believe these stories matter, and we thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Please consider leaving a comment below to share your own thoughts or experiences with acts of profound honesty or kindness. Let's create a space together where we can celebrate the moments that make us proud to be human and inspire one another to be the best versions of ourselves. Awa's life was completely and utterly transformed, not by the fortune she could have so easily taken for herself, but by the incredible and unwavering strength of her character. She and her brother Musa thrived in their new, loving environment, excelling in their studies at school and finally embracing the genuine, unconditional love of their new family. For the first time, they were given the precious and long overdue chance to simply have a childhood, free from the crushing burdens of survival. Years later, deeply and permanently inspired by Awa's profound act of integrity, Monsieur Ouagadougou established a major charitable foundation. Its sole and dedicated purpose was to help the many thousands of street children still struggling for survival in Ouagadougou, offering them shelter, education, and a pathway to a better life. It was his way of paying forward the hope that the young girl had given back to him on that fateful day. And in a testament to the beautiful, cyclical nature of kindness, the people chosen to lead that very foundation, to change the lives of countless vulnerable children, were none other than Awa and Musa Traore themselves. Having completed their educations and grown into compassionate and capable young adults, they accepted the responsibility with a deep sense of purpose, understanding the children's plight in a way no one else possibly could. They worked tirelessly and with immense passion to give other children the very same chance that they had once been given, creating a safe haven and a world of opportunity where before there was only despair. They built shelters, developed educational programs, and ensured that every child who came through their doors felt seen, valued, and loved, breaking the cycle of poverty and neglect for so many. Through their life's work, Awa and Musa ultimately proved to the entire world that true, lasting wealth isn't about what you can find inside of your wallet, but rather what you hold inside of your heart. Their incredible legacy of honesty, compassion, and unwavering integrity lived on for generations, becoming a legendary and inspirational story told throughout the city and beyond.